welcome to part 2 of my landing gear build. Let's carry on.
Okay, so while that's drying, what we can do is think about the gear lever. So I printed this bar to attach to the switch because obviously there's not enough throw in a normal switch for the amount that the actual gear lever does, and it doesn't just rotate like just at the front of the panel. It's sort of, you pull the lever down, so that's why we've got this really long thing. So we've got a large distance that it moves, and then we can obviously put the handle on the end. So the only problem with this is that on this switch it spins in the thing, and obviously we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue 2 strips like this on either side, so when we create obviously the mount for it, then it won't rotate. So I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so here are 2 pieces. So now what we can do is glue these on here, which will make sure that it doesn't rotate. So okay, so just leave that to dry. Okay, so now that it's dried, we can now paint it a lovely coat of matte black. Because believe it or not, the gear lever is not actually green in the real aircraft. Okay, so now we'll just leave that to dry. Okay, so now our panel should have dried to the acrylic or plexiglass, whatever you call it. So it's stuck to it again. There we go. So there is our wonderful backlit panel, as you can see. Okay, so obviously now what we need to do is we need to mount the switch to the back of this, and obviously we need to cut out the slot for the switch to go up and down. So we'll just cut the slot now. So I'm not going to cut round the square. Simply I'm going to do a line across there and a line across there, and then one down the middle, because then that'll act like little doors that'll slide by either side of the lever, like they do in the real aircraft. So I'll do a line there and a line there. And then we'll do a line down the middle. So there we now have the 2 doors, so that the landing gear switch, like this, will slide obviously up and down like that. So now we're just waiting for the paint to dry on the other piece. Okay, so now the paint's dried, we can now actually mount the lever to the front plate. So the switch is thinner than the widest part, which are these bars to stop it spinning. So what we need to do is we need to create these spacers that we can connect to. So what we're going to do is just glue them on. And there's the other. So there we go. So we can now mount to that. Okay, so now what we need to do is obviously connect it to the plate itself. So I know that this the top of the switch needs to be 8 centimeters away from the plate, so it doesn't, so it can, you know, turn all the way. So what I'm going to do is cut some of this lovely wood I've got here. It's quite thin strips. I'm going to cut it to 8 centimeters long, and then what we can do is just attach it on, and hopefully everything will work nicely. Okay, so now I've cut our two pieces, so we need to glue this to the switch. So these pieces are 9 centimeters long because it needs to be 8 centimeters to the top of the switch, and then I've got an extra centimeters that we can actually glue onto. And if you look, this part here is a little bit wider than this part, but that's okay because we want a bit of friction here so you get the nice mechanical feel, and we can also glue it on a bit of an angle so it's not really that much of an issue. So I'm going to glue these on. So that's one side. Here's the other side. So I'm just going to Okay, so it's there's a little bit more friction than I wanted, so what we can do is when we glue it, if we just sort of push those parts together, then it's not as tight. So that's so you can see we've now got our switch mount. So if we get our plate and push that through, then hopefully if we hold everything, then we should have a reasonably working switch. So there you go. That is our landing gear switch. So now what I'll do is I'll glue this on. So it's quite hard to get it level, so what I'm just going to do is just open up the vise so I can put that through there like that. So I'm going to glue one side first, because then I can adjust the other side to fit better. So I need to make sure that it's all in the middle. Just give that a couple of seconds to dry, and then we'll just test it to make sure nothing's gone horribly wrong. Okay, so it's a little bit tight on this edge, so because it's hot glue it just pops right off again. So I'm just going to glue that again and leave a little bit more of a gap so it's more equal on both sides. Okay, so there we go, that is about right. So now we can glue the other side. Okay, so I've just cut these two strips for the lighting. So here we have a lovely strip of LEDs. These are warm white LEDs, I believe, which is very similar to the one in the Airbus A320. They are sort of a whitey yellowy colour. Two sets of 3 LEDs is almost a perfect length for this. So I'm just going to stick these onto this panel here, hopefully trying to get them roughly centered. Like that. So there are LEDs and they're going to sit about there. So I'm actually just going to move them over a bit because they're not quite in the centre. Okay, so there we go. You can see that's lined up with the arrows, which are the main bits to be lit up. So I'm just going to go and solder some wires onto this strip so we can obviously connect to it. Okay, so as you can see, I've soldered some leads onto the LEDs, and I've also put some connectors so I can easily connect the panel. It's all they are is spade connectors that plug into each other. So yeah, because that'll just make it easier to connect up. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this strip onto the side like that, because obviously we don't want light going where it shouldn't be, like down this slot, and you don't want it bleeding into other panels. So I'm just going to glue this on. It's a little bit long, so I'm just going to trim it down. Okay, so this is now the right size, so I'm just going to glue that on. Okay, so now you can see that this the panel with the LEDs on is going to go there, like that. So I'm just going to glue that on now. Okay, I'm just going to glue that again because it wasn't quite level. Okay, so that's better the second time round. It's a lot more level. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in these gaps here, because obviously we don't want any light to come out of this slot here. So I'm just going to cut some panels to fit that now. Okay, so I've just cut these two cover pieces, so I'm just going to glue them on now. Okay, so we've done most of the box, but also just going to cover the ends just to make it obviously complete and stop any light coming out the ends. Okay, so this is one end, so I'll just glue that in. Okay, so I'll just make a piece for the other end, and then I'll have to cut out a little slot for the wires to come out. Okay, so here's the final piece with a little slot cut out for the wires, so I'm just going to glue that in. Okay, so there we go. So I'll just test the backlight. Okay, so there is our completed backlit gear panel. So well, it's not completely completed. I've still got to make the gear actual handle itself, but for now that is perfectly operational.